Another inmendham video. Yes. Completely unprovoked. Well, not entirely. So, yes, there's somebody made a video. Somebody linked me to, and it's horrible pro-lifer kind of crap. And so I thought I would play some of it and respond and whatnot. But, I get in the comments section too. Commenters are horribly useless, generally speaking. From my perspective. Anyway, so the whatever Benatar was saying that non-existence can never be deprived. Yes, well, clearly you can't deprive something that doesn't exist of an urgent need or a want or a delusion in their head or whatever it would be. You can't hurt them or help them. You can't do anything to them. They don't exist. Yes, who could possibly disagree with that? You're saying that it's not deprivation if the good is trivial. I'm saying it's not deprivation in any way possible. But the point is does the word good really mean it's an actual good? Is there really a golden egg, so to speak, that can be laid that in and of itself is worth something? Now, golden eggs are only worth something because you can cash them in for something that you can eat or something that you can fuck or something that you can enjoy. The egg itself isn't worth anything. What I'm arguing is that even if it were possible to have this thing good, that is the real subject. You can't deprive something of a good. I'm saying there's no such thing as a good. There's just fixing bads. You can't make the argument that humans need to exist because they need to clean up the milk they would have spilt. You see how the argument just doesn't work? You can't say we need to exist because we need to clean up the mess we would have made. That's why we should exist, because if we exist, we'll make a mess and then we'll clean it up, part of it, and that part wouldn't have got cleaned up if we don't exist. Yeah, but all the milk wouldn't have gotten spilt if you didn't exist. So that's the argument I'm making, is that it's kind of a moot point, whether the fact that you can't deprive the non-existent, because the real point is can you ever create a golden egg that is in and of itself worth something? Is there anything a human being can do to the universe that could ever be called something really good, that isn't just cleaning up its bads, cleaning up the mess it makes? I argue, no, there really isn't. Those are different arguments. Well, again, those aren't the arguments being made. It's not a you can never deprive the non-existent, because clearly we would agree on that. I just go a step further to say there's no such thing as a deprivation of a good. There's only the denial of your opportunity to fix a bad. A bad that you created, that your existence creates. You can only clean up messes we make. The universe doesn't have any mess that we can clean up. There's no mess in the universe that needs attention, that needs to be fixed. There's no broken until the consciousness shows up to create it. There's no harm. Without fixing harm, there is nothing. There's no eggs. I'm not sure if all goods are trivial. My point would be is all of them don't have to be trivial. We can certainly understand that the tiny amount that might not be can't be worth all of the fucking milk still left spilt. All of the horror endured. You can't justify your existence by saying it's an acceptable pain I'm imposing, because none of it's acceptable. It's too high a price. That's a pretty high mountain to climb to prove that. Well, again, I don't have to prove that. All I have to do is prove that even if I let you call a ton of goods that are cleaning up bads, I mean, the relief of hunger or something, and I said, okay, that's a legitimate good, even though we're just going to ignore the deprivation of hunger, the pain of it, the unpleasantness of it. Even if I gave that to you, it's still not going to be excuse, okay, to impose suffering on a bunch of other consciousnesses that aren't going to feel any gratification or function. They're going to just know they were tortured for nothing. And they're not going to know it, many of them. They're just going to endure the suffering for nothing. So, fuck you. You're an idiot. But all you people really are idiots, and it's just disappointing because I keep trying to make this argument that there's hope. You know, the world can change, people can change, you can talk to people, they can understand. And, you know, the commenters just keep proving that no, that's not possible. They're all idiots. And Gavolt is one of the examples, right? A guy who just sits there and wants to complain. That's all. He doesn't want to fix anything. History moves in cycles. We have a repetition of events. Well, again, that's, you know, the trends, even if they existed, some sort of solid trend. I mean, I could argue that, yes, some of these cycles, like the failure in the stock market, which will happen, were inevitable. And, you know, we just watched the bomb get built. We watched them stuff the dynamite in. We watched them put the caps on the ends. And then we watched them light the fuse. I mean, it's not like, oh, it's a big mystery. How'd that happen? So, yeah, we keep doing the same bullshit over and over again and think it's going to work. And it doesn't work. And it's been proven not to work. But even if that were true, I'd still argue that intelligence is not, there's no curve where you say it has to keep going this way or something, because intelligence creates the ability to get past that and to fix the problem that was causing the repeated failure. So with intelligence, you can't sit there and say it's always going to be stupid, because that would be idiotic. There is a point where it defeats the flaws. Its good code is bigger than its error code. Yes, when it's an infant, it's going to make lots of mistakes. And then when it's an adolescent, it's going to make less mistakes. And then when it's an adult, it makes less mistakes. That's also could be argued to be a trend. We cannot resist the trend of events as they unfold. So again, we cannot resist. We cannot imagine fixing a we got low air pressure in our wheel. We can't imagine putting some more air in and preventing the flat tire. Rome went away through cultural disintegration and dissipation will come to us through entropy. So again, just like it's some sort of law of physics that we can't get smart, that we can't grow up. You know, we can't become a professional. We can't pass the test. Just bullshit defeatism. Fuck you. I mean, I'm just so sick of these assholes who just say, you know, it's just an excuse. They don't want to do anything, and so they just find an excuse to say there's no cause worth fighting for. Just so fucking lame. So fucking lazy. Disgusting. So they just want to complain. Uselessly complain. I'm not complaining in any sense that I think is useless. I'm complaining in the hope that other people will be likewise say, yes, this is not acceptable, and that means we should actually do something about it. Unacceptable should be, by definition, unacceptable, and therefore we should do something about it. Fuck. Alright, so here's the douche for which I was linked, and yeah, so I won't bother with the beginning, and we'll just start somewhere, you know, because he just does the paraphrase of Benatar. And so we'll just get to how he defeats the argument. What he writes in the video is kind of gross. Let's see. So he's talking about himself in the third person. You know, I like that when people describe themselves. Anyway, no apologies is his name. Not all thoughts are worth thinking. Yeah, like it wouldn't be worth evaluating whether the fundamental nature of our existence is fundamentally justifiable. Like the universe needs milk spillers that only clean up half the milk. Josh breaks down the argument, Josh does, against procreation by philosopher David Benatar and shares his thoughts about the right way to think. Oh, isn't that amazing? I'm sure this won't be what you call thinking in any kind of intelligent manner. It'll be thinking in the, you know, don't worry, be happy manner. So, on to the bad show. So I better fix the video so you can see it. That would be nice of me, Gary. Yes, that's very good. Alright, hopefully you can see that okay.
So, there are two kind of fundamental I guess, issues I have with this. For one, he makes the argument that the world would be better if there were no sentient life. And to that, I have to say, better for whom?
Better for the victims. So yes, unless you think that everybody thinks they profited. So if you think everybody who died in World War I, like all those 18-year-olds said, "Gee, I didn't even get laid. I mean, I had to work since I was 7, and I get in this stupid war, and then I spent 3 months dying of whatever, the mumps or something else that I caught in the trench, and now I'm just dead. And yeah, that was supposed to be a good life. No, that was a shit." And then the ones who were really, horrifically injured, and went through horrific pains and sufferings, I'm sure they're pretty sure that they're thinking the crap you're talking now and this whole human civilization that we've built that's so slimy, I'm sure they're not feeling very proud of the civilization they saved. They're probably saying, damn, I shouldn't have shot the Nazis because at least they were clean and orderly. They weren't chaotic pigs. I mean, come on. You think the Nazis would tolerate assholes calling on the phone, trying to fool old people with Alzheimer's into, giving their bank account information? You think the Nazis would have tolerated that? I don't think so.
Better for whom?
The victims, the people who suffer unnecessarily and excessively. The things your highways are built out of, the people who get horribly and nastily disposed of for the industry, for the purpose of your glory, the glorious dance you're doing. So you can take 17 different kinds of vitamins. He has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, at least 9 jars, 10, 11 supplements. You can't get through life without popping all of this crap, and he's going to talk about how great it is in his fucking 96-year-old man sweater. I mean, not that I should talk about how people dress, but I mean, fuck, old man sweater guy knows what life is. He knows what a good time is. Yeah, I don't think so.
And how would you know that it's better? How could you quantify betterness?
You can quantify it by the amount of blood that's leaking out of somebody's ears and shit. You can quantify it by how much pain and suffering is endured. That's how you quantify it. And you say, is that worth it? If I actually saw the blood, the amount of blood, I mean, that is the amount of pain and suffering that everything really costs. If you saw the little tortured, rabbit with the crap in its eyeballs and shit on the picture of the thing when you bought it, if you actually knew what it cost, would you pay for it? My argument is, of course you wouldn't. And so if you understood that every day you live, you are essentially purchasing, some time that some kid spends dying of cancer, that all of that is the price for your comfortable life, saying everything's okay, life is fun, or whatever it is, it's mediocre. You don't look like you're having fun. But anyway, let's just say you're having some kind of fun. And you're saying it's worth it. I like this roller coaster ride. And all I'm saying is you're saying it's somehow hard to understand that we can all see what the ride costs. Like for every successful rider, there's a whole bunch of disabled, crippled, and tortured riders. You don't get that part?
From who?
From life experience. Okay, see, I don't need him to ask too many questions to have the answers, right? From whose? Yeah, no, you watch somebody die horribly. Okay, you watch somebody get Alzheimer's and spend 7 years struggling to hold on to a tiny percentage of their identity, and do so just being tormented essentially by every event that takes place. And then you watch people who really get it bad, who are physically sick, and you watch them turn into nothing but a tortured victim. And you say it's worth it. You say there's something you're doing in your life that's worth it. So I don't know, maybe you have kids, maybe you have a brother or a sister, and maybe you've seen them die horribly, and you say it's worth it. Everything I'm doing is so cool that it's worth that. That's a bargain. I say it's not even close to a bargain. My cat's dying and I can't stand it. I absolutely can't stand it. And somebody said, oh, I'll give you a chance to live the perfect life, a happy, wonderful life, except we're going to torture the cat again. I wouldn't do it. And he's not even being tortured. He's just being, you know, he's kind of peacefully fading away. But it's just the idea of it. It's unacceptable. You find it acceptable. You think this is a bargain. I don't think it's a bargain. I think it's a ripoff, a preposterous, insane ripoff. And I always have. I mean, it just never occurred to me to think, oh, this is a bargain. I'm set up for all kinds of disasters, you know, getting drafted, getting killed, doing this. Oh, yeah, I'm really happy with that situation. No, I had no delusion that this was a good idea throwing me in this slop house. It's a pigsty. You want to live in it? That's your business. But don't tell me I have to be your victim. Don't tell me you're going to subject me to the risk and say it's acceptable. Fuck you. That's an imposition, shithead.
Whose perspective, from what consciousness, are we able to evaluate that an existenceless life, if you can call such a thing that?
Yeah, nobody would do that. Nobody would call such a thing as that. There would just be the idea of preventing harm. That's it. Preventing harm, and it has this tiny cost of some silly thing with some stupid delusion that it's accomplishing something. Will never have the stupid delusion that it's accomplishing something. And that's your huge loss. You don't lose anything real. You can't point to the real thing, just as you can't point to the real horror that's taking place on Mars because there's no Martians. There's no rational way to point to it and say, wow, what a horrible horror. Oh, it's horrible to look at, the non-existent Martian. Oh, it's horrible. No, there's no horror. There's nothing. Idiot.
Would necessarily be better.
It would be necessarily better because first you wouldn't be imposing without consent, which is the nature of life. So right there it wins. And then the second argument is, even if you're stupid enough not to realize it's an imposition, and even if I ignore the fact that it's an imposition, you can just do the calculations as a human being, and if you think you're worth it, if you think you're accomplishing something where you say to yourself, I'm worth a kid having cancer and going through chemotherapy. I'm worth it. My happiness is worth their misery. Now, if you can say that, I'd say you're fucking psychotically insane. And I'd say you don't have any evidence to demonstrate to me how you're doing something, having some feeling that's all that fucking, that, you know, that's beyond my imagination. Because obviously I've had some nice feelings, and I can't possibly imagine how any one of them wouldn't be easily exchanged for preventing horrible feelings in somebody else. Because that exchange would be too obvious to me. Whatever dessert I've had in life is nothing compared to the opposite. The red numbers are much redder. And I'm not even sure there are any black numbers that aren't made out of erasing red ones.
I wonder if he feels that it would have been better if he was never born.
Obviously, he thinks that he wouldn't be arguing the argument if he didn't realize that his own life, he's probably watched, you know, people he cared about die horribly. He's probably watched the horrors in the world and the inequities and the poverty and the this. He's probably thought about World War II and what a horrific price that was paid for this thing we call freedom that we use so poorly. He's probably thought about all those equations, sure. And he's just logical enough to realize that, yes, I'm just a package of diluted storytelling. I'm telling my own little Three Bears story. And the Three Bears story has nothing to do with reality. My ambition and my desires and my wants and all that kind of crap is just a bunch of crap in a brain. And has no correlation to anything in the real world. There are no Three Bears. There's no Jedis. There's no accomplishment. Okay, those are all delusions of mine. Of, oh, I would be a millionaire, and I'm going to be this. You know, those are delusions of accomplishment, delusions of splendor in the grass. And they have nothing to do with practical reality, because we know in practical reality, the minute after, you know, the day after, is a migraine. I mean, you're stuck with the having sometimes is the worst thing that can happen to you. Actually, obtaining one of your goals can be the worst thing you can do, because all of a sudden your ambition dries up, your enthusiasm dries up, and they find you hanging from a shower curtain, you know, trying to get a better orgasm by suffocating yourself or some other kind of bullshit. It turns you into a psycho who can't find any gratification in life. Again, you got pill bottles on your fucking wall. You don't think most of the human race is on fucking some kind of medication to get through the day? Well, it is. You know, by age 50, 50% of the human race is disabled. Wait, what the fuck are you talking about, crazy person?
Does he think that the world would be better if you weren't born?
That's not his argument. He might think that the world's better that he was born just because he can clean up the milk that you assholes spilt. He can clean up some of that milk, so he can make an improvement in the circumstance, and he can prevent future milk from being created. So certainly the world might be better if he was created, but we're talking about the average life doing the average bullshit. And we're talking about the fact that we wouldn't need him to be here to clean up somebody else's mess if we never had the somebody else to make the mess in the first place. You don't need to clean up messes if nobody makes the mess in the first place, fuckhead.
There would be less suffering in the world? Certainly he thinks that his life is important enough to write a book to convince other people.
Right, and you don't understand that the whole purpose of that is prevention. That the future is a much bigger thing than the present. And he might be able to realize that. The future, a lot more people, a lot more hours. 10 minutes now, future's got a lot of 10 minutes in it. Lots and lots of them. So yeah, there's more at stake.
To not bring life into this world? So does he view it necessary that he...
So again, you're not recognizing the necessity of making the milk spiller in the first place. That's the whole problem with your idiotic notions of what a good is. I would argue that most goods are fixing a bad, cleaning up a mess. If you don't make the mess, then you don't need somebody to clean it. But obviously, if the mess is already in the process of being made and is made, then there can be great value in being here to clean it up. But it's only contingent on the first error. He's saying don't make the first mistake of make mess makers, then you don't have to make mess cleaner-uppers. Don't make the mistake of writing the stupid Three Bears story, then you don't have to have... Well, Red Riding Hood would be better, right? Because then you wouldn't have to have the Tin Woodman or somebody show up to kill the wolf or whatever the crap happens. And he shows up too late anyway because the fucking wolf already ate Grandma. So the story already sucks.
Be born so he can promulgate this idea. It's completely incoherent. Look,
Right. It's completely incoherent to be logical, to recognize that cures are better than Band-Aids and that prevention is even better. Yeah, that's stupid. Don't get the disease is the best idea. Curing the disease is second best, and putting a Band-Aid on the disease is the worst idea. And you're too stupid to figure out that progression of logic.
some ideas are not worth thinking. You know, we evolve.
I don't. And your deluded fucking fairy stories of how you're accomplishing something is the only thoughts I can imagine not being worth thinking. Almost everything's worth a thought anyway. It's whether something's worth rejecting. And you're saying, I reject the idea of preventing harm. You're saying it's necessary to make things to be tortured so you can play your little game. The roller coaster is worth it. Even though there's blood and tissue and guts all over the fucking place. You just don't give a shit. Glib bastard. Get what you deserve.
Evolved a very expensive organ called the brain to help us solve the problems of the world.
Exactly what he's doing. He's telling you the problem is in your own delusions. You're a deluded fool if you think you're on some great Jedi adventure. And even the Jedis, right? They weren't making good somewhere in the world, were they? Were they doing like golden egg making of the special good? No, they were fixing problems. They were fixing the things that were broken in the world. They weren't making goods. They were cleaning up bads. So you just don't get it. You can't really write a movie where you make a pristine good that's actually independent of all the bad that it has to be made out of. I mean, you're breaking a lot of eggs to make an egg. You can't figure that out. To make one egg, you're breaking 20 eggs. You moron. And then you talk about thinking and logic. You're an affront, an offense to logic.
Of resource acquisition and management, of mate selection, of innovation.
Mate selection. Who talks like that? Who even thinks in mate selection? As if we could do even that with any kind of logic. Oh, fuck. What a deluded kook.
Creation, how to raise a family.
Like, that works too, right? I mean, there's all the evidence in the world that there's just no way to do it. You're just, the odds are always going to be against you. It's only one in a very limited number of cases that anybody's able to manufacture a child into something. And then it's usually just going to be because they were lucky. Because the world really raises your child. And you just can't control the events. And if you could control them, you would control them in a way that would create an asshole. Because you would spare your kid harms. And you can't learn about what life is until you're, you have to feel it. You have to experience it. And apparently it hasn't gotten to you yet. Reality hasn't knocked on your fucking door hard enough.
How to build air conditioning and the internet. We didn't evolve our
the shitternet. I mean, yes, we built the thing that's where our search engine is the biggest marketing company in the world. That was clever as fuck.
Massively expensive brain, which doesn't even reach full development until, by some accounts, age 30. So, like,
well, if you believe that, you're kind of silly also. Knowledge acquisition, I suppose, is different than the ability to use what knowledge you've acquired. So, yes, some assholes, like idiots like you, it takes them 80 years to figure out, oh, I was on a really bad boat ride, wasn't I? I mean, it'd be really nice if we get the testimony of dead people. I mean, that would help, right? If all the dead could testify. Because then they could point out how, yeah, those last 5 years I spent dying were really bad, and that was a bad trade-off. That was really dumb. And give you a little, reality check about your delusions that, this life process all ends in the fairy tale. See, all you deluded people, you go out and you have babies before you really know what it's like to watch them die. Or what it's like to watch even your own parents die. You think life is easy, and, but you just haven't tasted enough of it.
About a third of your life is just getting the necessary equipment ready to be able to influence the world and acquire resources and do the...
Right, and that's if you're born physically healthy. So you just don't care, You think it's all easy. It's not easy.
Whole Darwinian dance.
And we all should think that means something. The whole Darwinian dance is what's on trial, jackass. Darwinian, nature is a mass murderer of children. It kills more children than anything else. Fact. It slaughters children in grotesque numbers. And if we hadn't become civilized and been able to fight against some of it, that's how we'd be living. Is that the average person would not only watch their kids die, but likely watch their wife die too. And you think that's a good game to play. I think you're an asshole.
We didn't evolve this massive capacity so that people could put forth ideas that would negate the whole game itself.
Right. So we built nature, and therefore nature's great. I mean, what a circular piece of crap that was, to go from Darwin to we and your we ambition. as if we shouldn't look at the process of evolution, which is make a whole bunch of something and kill most of them really horribly, and then let one of them breed. Or maybe even being elephant seals. That's really one of nature's great ideas, right? One seal gets to make all the babies, and all the rest of the male seals are just shark food. They don't exist for any other purpose than to spread the genes of the king. That's a real bargain too, isn't it? Well, that's the fate you're sentencing things to. You're just saying, let's do that over and over again. You know, where one time we're the winner and 1,000 times we're the loser. One time we get to win, 1,000 times we get to lose, and lose really badly.
Oh, some ideas aren't worth thinking.
Right, deluded fantasies that nature knows what it's doing is one of those.
If this idea were taken to its logical conclusion, it would conceivably mean the end of everything.
And everything is what? A galaxy, stars, nuclear suns, or something? What out there in the universe that we can detect is innately valuable and would be horribly missed if it was gone? That somehow there would be a real genuine reason to say, gee, what a horror that we don't have that molten sulfur burning pile over there. No, there's nothing, asshole. You just have a delusion that this little robot that you're living out, you're living the life of a little robot, a little programmed machine, dictated by culture and all kinds of other stuff. That's why you're wearing the silly old man sweaters, because some cultural bullshit in your fucking head, like this gives me character or makes me look dignified. Whatever, notions in your fucking head. And you're proud of those. But no, if the universe had a brain and could look at you, it wouldn't be fooled. It wouldn't think you're some kind of marvelous invention. You're a fucking bubbling pile of sulfur.
And what would have been the point of that? How can you justify millions of years of evolution that brought us to this point?
Right, millions of years of torturing and killing children. Okay, so let's get it right. Millions of years of using children for some sort of genetic experiment, slaughtering children for the purpose of a genetic experiment. How dare you stop that wonderful process? Because it's creating such magnificent things as spam phone callers and shit. It's just so fucking cool. You know, that we have a whole industry where people just try to fool people into buying shit. Yeah, it's just so cool. We're so cool. No, you suck.
We're at now where we're actually, for the first time in recorded history, able to deal with the issue of suffering. And
amazing. So we've dealt with it in some way. We've dealt with it in the sense that what, you have to pay $300 to have somebody humanely put your cat to sleep. We haven't dealt with anything, you kook.
That Mr. Benatar seems to be so consumed about.
Right, like we shouldn't be consumed about the suffering in the world, and especially since it's all been cured. I mean, there's nobody in Bangladesh that's getting inadequate health care. You know, there's no homeless people in South America. No, there's no people living on garbage dumps. There's no people with parasites eating them from the inside out. No, it's all been fixed. Gee, what are we complaining about? Life is just fun. Shit.
It seems pretty short-sighted. It's not like there aren't educational solutions to this problem.
You can get educated out of getting cancer and dying badly. Oh, shit. Oh, I should have paid more attention at school, huh?
Technological solutions to this problem, moral and interpersonal solutions to this problem. No.
So whatever. So he thinks he has all of those. So he's an expert on even interpersonal relationships. So, you know, no one's going to mock you at all when you get divorced 6 years from now. You know, who knows? I mean, what a pile of shit. And everybody's dealing with all those problems so well. We can see how the technology is saving us all because, yes, the pill bottles just keep increasing. More and more people dependent on more and more chemical augmentations to get them through their fucking life. And you say it's because it's so spectacular. it's such a wonderful thing we're doing that yes, it's worth it.
Just stop. And I have to say, what kind of person is going to be susceptible to this argument?
Rational people who aren't totally egomaniacal lunatics who think, that, they're so special. I'm so special. I'm so special, and my life is so. It's such a definition of what happens on planet Earth that whatever game I'm playing must be a good game for everybody else to play. Even though they can't play that game, they're never going to have the option to play that game, and they're never going to have the good luck to play that game because they weren't born to play that game. Because they're born blind, and you just couldn't give a shit.
I actually want to backtrack what I said before. I don't think this would be the end of everything if his idea were to become popular.
His idea is already popular in the sense that people are already behaving as if they had contempt for the existence of human beings. Because the majority of people, don't have sufficient children to maintain human existence. If the bottom 20% could somehow, who have the most kids, if those people could somehow be shipped to another planet, the population on Earth, made of the 80%, would die out. So it's already an idea accepted in terms of its implications. People have already accepted the behavior necessary to achieve the objective. Most people have already accepted the behavior necessary to achieve the objective. And it's only 20% of the population that are the non-compliant, I'm going to keep making messes.
I think it would be the end of smart people. I think it would be the end of innovation and creation.
I don't know where he gets that one from, right? The end of smart people? When we know the dumbest people on Earth are doing the most breeding. So again, he doesn't associate IQ with intelligence. He doesn't associate cultural sophistication with intelligence, because obviously, the cultures that are the most intelligent or the most sophisticated are the ones where the breeding population is the lowest. And they have to import, like the United States. Zero population growth in the United States from the native population. It's only the imports that are increasing the population. But just keep pretending the story is different than that.
What kind of person is going to be receptive to this argument in the first place?
All of Japan? I don't know.
See, Mr. Benatar has massive genetic, financial, social resources to be able to make this position. So,
I don't even know what that even means, but I should say something just because it was such a preposterous string of words. He has massive social something resources. He's a professor at a college in South Africa who's seems like he's a bit shy.
It stands to reason that only people with similar or comparable genetic, social, and financial resources are A, ever going to become aware of this argument,
and B, they don't need to be aware of it because they already understand that having a kid is a huge responsibility, or they understand it's a huge liability. They understand one of those two things, that it's either they're incompetent to be doing it, or they understand that they're unqualified to be doing it because they don't have the resources or the give a damn. But either way, they've already concluded that making babies is for morons.
And B, will ever be susceptible to the argument in the first place.
So again, like I said, they've already been receptive to a big piece of the argument in the sense they've already realized that life isn't free. And you can't just keep farting babies out and everything works out okay. So they already know life is tricky, at minimum. They know it's dangerous, and that it would be unwise for them to recklessly produce victims. That they have some responsibility not to just recklessly produce victims. And only the dumbest people on Earth, like you, think reckless production of victims is a good idea.
So really, what he's doing is convincing smart people to stop procreating.
No, they already stopped. So he's not convincing them to stop procreating. He's trying to convince them that here we are, recognizing this problem that is in the nature of existence itself, that we're just caught up in an addiction, and that if we're going to do something constructive about it, then we have to do it collectively. So we have to make this argument to the rest of the morons and say, look, it's time to at least press the pause button and consider what this is on Earth, this infestation called life. And is it really doing the living a favor to kill 100 of them to make one of them that gets to live to maturity? Kill 100 to make one that lives to maturity. Is that a good idea? And the real numbers in nature are much worse than that.
And if you have smart people stop procreating, which, by the way, is already happening.
No, I already told you that. Yeah, that's right. So that's why your argument is moot. He's obviously not trying to convince them to stop procreating. He's trying to convince them to understand that you have to take life seriously, and you have an obligation to the victims to take it seriously. And to seriously, if you're going to defend the existence of life and you're going to say it's okay to keep making it and subsidize the ignorant into producing more liability for the future, that you ought to do that knowing what you're doing, knowing that you're just creating a mess that somebody else will have to clean up.
The United States has a reproduction rate of like 1.44, which is, I mean, it's a huge problem in the West.
So you think that's a problem because we're not doing the unsustainable growth thing anymore? Like somehow the unsustainable growth curve wasn't a problem, and so now we fixed that, and that's now a problem somehow. We're not living an impossible curve, and therefore we have to fix that because we're not doing something impossible.
Connected to the larger problem of immigration, we're not making enough people to sustain our economic system, so we're going to...
No, that's just a lie. I mean, obviously you could sustain a system of economics, no problem. You can make sustainable economic systems. We lived in them for hundreds of years. The system didn't have to change at all. The population didn't have to grow at all. The humans existed in such systems for hundreds of years. It's completely possible to have a sustainable economy. We don't have to have this growth thing. That's just something that the rich are profiting off of because they need debt to grow. And you have to have a new victim to put a new debt slip into, a new pocket.
Supporting people who are not actually going to contribute to the economic system is this whole big complicated issue, and in the middle of it, at the heart of it, is this Benatar guy.
He's not in the middle of that issue at all. Like I said, it has absolutely no bearing. If you think he's going to convince a bunch of already convinced people not to have children, that's not what he's trying to do. He's convincing a sensible, rational world to have some respect for the gratuitous amounts of suffering that are being caused in the world and that are caused to happen because of the human condition, because of the animal condition, because of the conscious condition. And that condition was built by this stupid machine called nature, and it wasn't a wise machine. It didn't make a device, or it didn't make a system that at all was efficient. It kills. It's a mass murderer of children, for fuck's sake. How many times does that fact have to be rubbed in your face? And you're saying do more of it, make more of it, more mass murder.
Just completely fucking it up. This would be the end of smart people. Smart people would hear this.
Again, so they're just a silly argument. He already conceded that smart people were already not having kids without Benatar. And he's arguing as if Benatar is going to convince smart people to have less kids. Well, he might convince some people who weren't so smart. They'll now say, yeah, I'm not going to have kids, because I've probably done that. So I've prevented some victims from being shoved into the fucking onto the roller coaster to be fodder for your good time Charlie bullshit. So yeah, he'll have some effect, but that's not the point. The point is the truth and giving it some fucking respect. And you just want to live in your little fucking nursery school happily ever after bullshit story of how life works. The 7 dwarfs didn't go to heaven. You know, Sleeping Beauty and Prince Charming, it didn't all end wonderfully for them. They didn't do any happily ever after. They did ovarian cancer and Alzheimer's disease and got thrown in a fucking home drooling on themselves. Fuck. Just keep telling your lie. Keep selling this lie that you're accomplishing something by making things that die. It's a dumb idea.
Argument? Take it into consideration. It's hard to imagine convincing a 75, 80, 85 IQ person, yeah, don't have sex, don't procreate.
Okay, so again, another idiot who can't somehow disconnect sex from having babies. It's really easy to do. I mean, I never would have had sex if I thought you couldn't have sex without procreating. You know. But again, so I mean, how dumb are you going to be? You're going to really make an argument this fucking stupid that somehow people have to give up having sex to be against procreation, when clearly they can get sterilized. They can do lots of things to prevent having babies. So another completely insipid argument. I mean, grammar school kids really shouldn't even fall for that one. You should be able to explain to them that, oh yes, sex and reproduction are not the same act for us anymore. We're not dumb animals. It's like we don't know, we're not ignorant of how reproduction happens, and we can understand, oh, okay, you just have to stop that little spermy shit from getting to that eggy shit, and then everything's okay. Yeah, we can figure that part out. Idiot.
When genetically that's their best avenue for Darwinian success.
So now again, win at the slaughter the most babies competition. So again, I should be proud to be a good member of the Darwin team, fighting for how many little kids were killed to create you. You know, how many genetic codes did you wipe out to be the superior genetic code? Fuck you, psychotic kook.
This argument is anti-Darwin. It's anti-evolution. It's
Yes, of course, fine, yes. It's not anti in the sense that it's not recognizing the truth of evolution. It's anti in the sense it doesn't think fucking evolution is Albert Einstein or something. That evolution had a really big brain and it really knew what it was doing when it created the system where it kills hundreds of children to create one mature winner. Yeah. You're an idiot.
it's anti-humanitarian and rational self-interest.
How is it against your rational self-interest to recognize that there for the grace of Benatar go I, that I'll just be continually exposed in a sense to this gameplay where I arrive on planet Earth and maybe next time it'll be in Indonesia. Fun for me. And I, little tiny penis and, really just a miserable life by any standard of my own standard of aesthetically it'd be crappy. I won't even be speaking fucking English and I'll be in a dirty, stinking shithole. How could I feel optimistic about that? Subjecting consciousnesses to living out these horrible permutations of the game, when I know that most of the permutations are not rich person in nice fancy palace. Most of the permutations are horribly poor person shoveling through garbage for their dinner. Fucker. Yeah, I'd be very grateful to be spared the next great adventure.
It's a monster of a hyper-rational person.
Okay, so now it's hyper rational. So it was stupid before, but now it's hyper rational. And hyper rational would be bad. Ludicrously rational. Is that what you're going to say next? I mean, hyper intelligent. I don't know. I mean, that should be a bad thing. No, the opposite is the bad thing. Hyper ignorance is the evil, asshole. Look out for that. It's going to look like you.
Benatar guy is the definition of an intellectual.
Oh, what is this? Fear the intellectuals. They're, just amazing. So he just went through this whole speech about how one of the great things about us is that we acquired this intelligence and we had to work so hard to learn all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And now he's discounting the very function and saying, oh, you totally abused it by actually using it. I didn't mean you were supposed to be smart with your smartness. I meant you were supposed to just put more elaborate things in the Goldilocks story. Because you're smarter, you could give the bears skateboards. And so they wouldn't have to go for a walk, they could go skateboarding. And you know, I thought you would use your intelligence to, you know, give them buttoned sweaters and stuff. You know, the bear, Papa Bear has a nice button-down sweater. Fuck.
Where he's overdeveloped his thinking capacity to the level where he can't see how he's overstepped the boundary of legitimate and necessary and justifiable problem solving and thinking.
Right. Solve the problem by turning off the valve that says sewage on it. Yeah. Problem solved. Cesspool gone. Yes, just turn off the source of the suffering. Suffering solved. Alright, probably enough. I could probably do more, but I don't want to go on and on and on and on, so maybe I'll save some for another day. But clearly an imbecile. Clearly. Didn't give this any real thought. And, you know, he's just very glib. Very unconcerned about the process, the meat grinding. And he just doesn't really care because he doesn't see how he's going to get ground. He thinks he's immune. He has his magic sweater, and it will protect him. I don't think it will. I don't think he'll be talking this same shit 40 years from now if he's still around. I don't think so. So anyway, till next time, such, so forth and whatnot. Hopefully this is adequately recorded. Just having some technical issues.